First round, you got the Washington DBs, right? Kyler Gordon,
Right.
Trent McDuffie, Andrew Booth Jr., who I think maybe draft Twitter, draft media is a little bit higher on somebody like Booth than the NFL is, just based off of where he is on some people's boards right now, some of the plugged in media. So Andrew Booth Jr. is an interesting conversation. There's some guys later on in the draft and on day 2 that I think are interesting. This is a position where I would be really shocked if they don't take somebody in the draft at corner, because regardless of JC Jackson's situation, they just need bodies at that spot, and they need some.
Right.
They need somebody with upside too, right? Because I think that Juwan Williams, that ship has sailed. So they need somebody that could potentially come in here, and even if it's not right away, 2 or 3 years down the line, can develop into a starting caliber corner.
Well, I think we both know who that guy is, but we'll get to him in a little bit. I'll tier this like I did with the defensive tackles, and I'm mostly focused on outside corners. They're good in the slot for now. You still got Jonathan Jones under contract. I know Miles Bryant had a rough go of it against Buffalo, but I still think he's a good player. So, first round, outside corners. First round, maybe realistic. This might change after this week. Andrew Booth Jr., you sold me on him. You've given him enough rave reviews. Middle rounds, Josh Jobe. I think Josh Jobe is interesting to me, because a lot of the reasons he's not a first-round pick are things that are going to be insignificant to the Patriots. He doesn't have a lot of scheme versatility. This is kind of the flip of what I talked about with Nakobe Dean earlier.
Right.
Josh Jobe's really only a press man corner. So a lot of teams are going to write him off. Patriots want press man corners. They don't care that he can't play zone.
Right.
So they might see him as a value pick in the second round. And then the late round guy, I think the most exciting prospect in this draft, not the best player, but the most intriguing, exciting, interesting prospect in this draft. Evan, I hope we're on the same page with this. He's Tariq Woolen, UTSA. I don't know what this kid is going to be, but I cannot wait to find out. 6'4", 205. There's rumors he's going to run a 4.25 40. Supposedly he
lower
one last
some people
week.
Think he's gonna, some people think he's going to break John Ross's record.
Well, supposedly he clocked a 4.25 last week working out, right?
Yeah.
So again, 6'4", 205. 4.2 40, converted wide receiver. We know how the Patriots love those guys who change positions. He sees the game through a receiver's eyes as a corner. He's very raw. He's incredibly raw. He's only played corner for 2 years. But you want to talk about potential. Is there a player with a higher ceiling in this draft outside of the first round than Tariq Woolen? I don't know that there is.
So the biggest concern that I have with Tariq Woolen, because you gave all the positives of why he's a great prospect, the biggest concern that I have with him, watching him, is how he plays with his back to the football and press coverage, right? So when he's playing with his back to the ball and he's trying to play the ball in the air without eyes on the quarterback, he loses the ball at the top of the catch point, right? So that leads to a lot of losses down the field that way. But then there are times where that speed just shows up in the open field, or he just chases somebody down from across the field and you're like, holy crap, this guy can really move. So I like Tariq Woolen a lot for his upside as well, because you gave the upside player kind of the athletic freak. Mario Goodrich from Clemson, who's the other corner from Clemson. Andrew Booth Jr. is on one side. It's kind of like Sauce Gardner and Kobe Bryant, but at Clemson's version. Mario Goodrich is not the athlete that Booth is. I don't think he's going to test particularly great in terms of the 40, but he is a very heady, instinctive football player. And I think one of the things that the Patriots are really going to like about him is how well he tackles. And I know that everything we talk about with corners is how well you cover, right? You don't want to give up catches to the point where you have to make tackles. But Goodrich is one of those guys that will run support, that will screen support, that will come off his man down the field and make tackles on somebody else's guy that's running with the football. And he just racks up tackles everywhere. His tape against Syracuse was one of the better DB tapes that I saw out of this day 2, day 3 group. He had 4 pass breakups against Syracuse, and he was all over the field. He's a really interesting prospect because I know, and we know, Alex, that they love corners who tackle. They love guys that are willing to tackle and that are sound tacklers. And I think Goodrich is one of those types of players. He kind of reminds me of Logan Ryan, quite frankly, right? Where like he's not the best cover talent. He's not going to lock down his man every single game, but he's going to tackle extremely well. And when he does give up catches, he's not going to give up this 80-yard touchdown because he's going to make sure that his guy gets on the ground. So I think those are some things that they'll look for in that position. I'm also interested to see a little bit closer, more up to the top of the draft, is Cair Elam from Florida, because he has a lot of traits that they've coveted in the past as well. Length, press man ability, good mirroring skills, good ball skills down the field. Long speed and ability to stay attached at the top of the route has been a concern of mine with his tape. So how he moves, how he tests, how he runs in the 40, his 3-cone time, even if you want to go that direction with it as well. Those are some things I'm going to look for with Cair Elam. I want to move him up my board. I want him to be like a tier 2 corner. But because of his inability to stay attached down the field, I've moved him into that 3rd tier. If he tests really well at the combine, I'd probably convince myself into moving him up. So he's a really interesting player.
Thanks for watching our content of the 6-time Super Bowl champion New England Patriots. Please subscribe to my podcast, Patriots Beat, on our YouTube channel, Patriots Press Pass, or wherever you get your podcasts for a lot more exclusive content right here on the CLNS Media Network.